All right, good morning, everyone. The committee will come to order. I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and I want to especially thank the witnesses for being here. Today, women make up more than 50% of the population. They've grown to be 47% of the workforce and are increasing their footprint as business owners. As of last year, surveys indicate that women own 12.3 million companies, employ more than 9.2 million people, and generate $1.7 trillion in revenue. While great progress has been made in the number of women starting their own businesses, spurring economic growth and creating jobs, challenges do remain. We hear from small businesses that what they need most often are access to markets and customers. As the largest purchaser of goods and services in the world, spending nearly $442 billion in FY 2017, the federal government relies on small businesses to provide high-quality goods and services at competitive prices. Recognizing the importance of women-owned small businesses and the difficulties they face in accessing federal contracting opportunities, Congress created the Women-Owned Small Business Program and the Small Business Reauthorization Act of 2000. Despite the clear intent of Congress to establish this program, it did not begin to operate until 2011, more than a decade after its passage. This program was designed to provide increased access to federal contracting opportunities for women-owned small businesses and economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses by allowing contracting officers to set aside specific contracts for certified firms. Doing so helps agencies achieve their statutory goal of 5% of federal contracting dollars awarded to women-owned small businesses. However, since enactment, that 5% goal has only been met one time since 2013. And again, we missed the mark in FY 17 with $20.8 billion going to women-owned businesses, about 4.7% of contracting dollars. We can and simply must do better to hit the mark of 5%. A critical part of doing so is by finally implementing the changes made in the FY 2015 National Defense Authorization Act. Legislation authored by Chairwoman Velasquez amended multiple provisions of the program, paving the way for much-needed reform. The first change, and the only one implemented to date, granted sole source authority, allowing contracting officers the ability to award contracts when appropriate without a competitive process. This update put the Women-Owned Small Business Program on a level playing field with all other small business administration contracting programs. Secondly, the legislation removed a small business's ability to self-certify eligibility for the Women-Owned Small Business Program to address concerns of potential fraud. Finally, it made clear Congress's intent for the SBA to certify program participants. These two certification measures were intended to help prevent fraud and ensure that contracts are awarded to the intended recipients' women-owned small businesses. Much like the delayed implementation of the Women-Owned Small Business Program, we have seen yet again the SBA taking, if we want, I think, to be generous, an overly deliberative process to implement the very clear intent of the legislative branch. In light of these implementation delays in 2017, the members of this committee requested GAO to review the program, and today's hearing gives us the opportunity to discuss their findings and recommendations. The report echoes the finding of prior GAO reports and those of the SBA Inspector General that the SBA has still not addressed ongoing oversight issues. For example, GAO previously recommended that SBA establish procedures to assess the performance of 4 third-party certifiers, private entities approved by SBA to certify the eligibility of women-owned small firms. While SBA conducted a compliance review of the certifiers in 2016, it has no plans to regularly monitor them. Thus, SBA cannot ensure that certifiers are fulfilling the requirements of their agreements as stipulated by the parties, and it is missing the opportunity to gain valuable information that could help improve the program's processes. By not improving its oversight of the program, SBA is limiting its ability to ensure third-party certifiers are following program requirements. Most troublesome is the lack of a certification process. After nearly 5 years, the agency has yet to implement its own certification program or implement self-certification, which increases the likelihood for fraud in the program. This is unacceptable. While I'm glad to see SBA is taking this matter seriously by publishing a proposed rule for implementing the certification program on Tuesday of this week, I remain concerned about the duration of this process. It is difficult for me not to wonder when we would have seen this rule issued had we not scheduled this hearing. It is encouraging to see the SBA plans to apply consistent certification standards across the programs and establish a free electronic application process. Yet the fact that SBA relies so heavily on third-party certifiers who charge fees raises some questions, despite the agency stating in the rule that it intends to perform compliance reviews of the certifiers. This flies in the face of the GAO's findings that SBA had no plans to regularly monitor them. With all this said, I look forward to working with SBA on this matter to ensure that a new certification program is promptly established and meets our objectives. We know that when it comes to federal procurement, women-owned companies too often face an uphill battle to winning their fair share of contracts. That's precisely why the program was created in the first place, to create greater opportunity for female entrepreneurs and a fairer procurement process. This hearing gives us a chance to have an open dialogue so that we can work together to guarantee women have a seat at the table when it comes to doing business with the government. I thank both our witnesses for their attendance and insights into this important topic, and I'd now like to yield to the ranking member, Mr. Stauber, for an opening statement.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The federal government recognizes a long-standing policy that the government should aid, counsel, assist, and protect the interests of small business concerns, and that the Small Business Administration, along with other federal agencies, do their utmost to promote this directive. To increase competition and encourage a diverse makeup of small businesses participating in the federal marketplace, the Small Business Administration manages a variety of procurement programs that are exclusive to small business. These small businesses programs allow a protective space for small entities to flourish and thrive so that they may later rise to compete in the open market. Among these programs is the Women-Owned Small Business Program, designed specifically to encourage growth in industries where women-owned small businesses are underrepresented. The purpose of the program is a noble one. However, in order to ensure that the goals of the program are fully realized, the federal government must make certain the integrity of the program is intact. Unfortunately, government watchdogs have discovered that this may not be the case. The Government Accountability Office and the SBA Office of Inspector General identified several deficiencies in SBA's oversight of the Women-Owned Small Business Program. First, the SBA significantly delayed adoption of 2 of the 3 critical changes to the Women-Owned Small Business Program that were mandated by the fiscal year 2015 National Defense Authorization Act. The GAO pointed out that the SBA's enactment of the sole source authority without implementing the front-end certification program or eliminating the self-certification option may have exacerbated SBA's existing oversight deficiencies. Given that the law was passed nearly 4 years ago and the SBA just issued its proposed rule for the remaining changes 2 days ago, this egregious delay cannot be overstated. Let me be clear, the issuance of the proposed rule on May 14th does not absolve the SBA. The will of Congress was clear, and the SBA's postponement is inexcusable. Furthermore, the GAO found that the SBA does not have adequate procedures in place to regularly monitor and assess the performance of third-party certifiers. This includes a lack of consistent compliance reviews and regular utilization of certifiers' monthly reports. This lack of oversight may create situations where ineligible or fraudulent firms participate in the Women-Owned Small Business Program. The GAO has also found that the agency conducted few examinations assessing a firm's eligibility in the Women-Owned Small Business Program and lacked a mechanism for evaluating its findings. This limits the agency's ability to detect and prevent potential fraud. The SBA continues to rely heavily on competitors utilizing the protest process to identify potential fraud, as opposed to actively rooting out ineligible firms themselves, which is inadequate to protect the integrity of the Women-Owned Small Business Program. Lastly, the GAO concurred with a previous SBA Office of Inspector General report that women-owned small businesses set-aside contracts were awarded using improper industry codes. Unfortunately, the agency seems to take this matter lightly, stating that this issue has a minimal impact on the program's purpose. While there are numerous deficiencies in the program, stakeholders did note positive aspects, specifically that the program offers greater opportunities for women-owned small businesses. Today, I hope to understand the reasons why the SBA has not resolved its weakness and work with the administration to ensure that the program is operating efficiently, effectively, and with the utmost integrity moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Stelver. The gentleman yields back. And if committee members have opening statements prepared, we would ask that they be submitted for the record. I would now like to introduce our witnesses. First witness is Mr. William Scheer, Director of GAO's Financial Markets and Community Investment Team. He leads GAO's work on community and economic development, small business, and Native American housing issues. As part of his portfolio, he oversees evaluations of the Small Business Administration's contracting, disaster assistance, credit, and counseling programs. Mr. Scheer joined GAO more than 20 years ago. He has a master's degree in public policy and a PhD in economics, both from the University of Chicago. He also served as an adjunct faculty member in the graduate program in city and regional planning at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Mr. Scheer. Our second witness is Mr. Rob Wong, Associate Administrator of SBA's Office of Government Contracting Business Development since March of 2017. He's held multiple positions within the SBA. He started his career as an SBA attorney in the Office of the General Counsel, then was a Special Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Houston District Office, and later was the SBA Acting District Director, Counsel in the Lubbock District Office. Did I get that right? Lubbock. All right. From 1996 to 2017, he was CEO for several small businesses that successfully used SBA's products and programs to enhance growth. Mr. Wong is a graduate of Georgetown University Law Center. Welcome, Mr. Wong. Mr. Scheer, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Golden, Ranking Member Stauber, and members of the subcommittee. I'm pleased to be here this morning to discuss our recent work on SBA's Women-Owned Small Business Program. Congress authorized the program in 2000, allowing contracting officers to set aside procurements to women-owned small businesses in industries in which they are substantially underrepresented. The 2015 National Defense Authorization Act changed the program by 1, authorizing SBA to implement sole source authority, 2, eliminating the option for firms to self-certify as being eligible for the program, and 3, allowing SBA to implement a new certification process. Today, I will discuss, first, the extent to which SBA has implemented changes to the program made by the 2015 NDAA. Second, the extent to which SBA has implemented changes to address previously identified oversight deficiencies, including those we identified in our October 2014 report. And third, changes in the program's use since 2011, including since the 2015 implementation of sole source authority. First, SBA has implemented one of the 3 changes to the Women-Owned Small Business Program authorized in the 2015 NDAA. As of early May 2019, SBA had not eliminated the option for program participants to self-certify that they are eligible to participate, as required by the 2015 NDAA. In October 2017, an SBA official stated that SBA was about 1 to 2 months away from publishing a proposed rule. However, the following year, in June 2018, SBA officials stated that a cost analysis would be necessary before the draft rule could be sent to the Office of Management and Budget for review. 2 days ago, on May 14th, SBA published a proposed rule as part of its process to eliminate self-certification and implement a new certification process. Second, SBA has not addressed program oversight deficiencies and recommendations in our October 2014 report. For example, we recommended that SBA establish procedures to assess the performance of the 4 third-party certifiers in accord with the requirements of the third-party certifier agreement and program regulations. We also made a recommendation to enhance eligibility examinations of businesses that register to participate in the program. While SBA generally agreed with our recommendations and conducted a compliance review of certifiers in 2016, it has not conducted another review of the certifiers since. Further, the implementation of sole source authority in light of these continued oversight deficiencies can increase program risk. We maintain that our recommendations aimed at improving oversight should be addressed. In addition, our March 2019 report found that about 3.5% of contracts using a program set-aside were awarded for ineligible goods or services from April 2011 through June 2018. Moving to the third part of my discussion on changes in the program's use since 2011, while federal contract obligations to all women-owned small businesses and program set-asides have increased since fiscal year 2012, WASB program set-asides remain a small percentage. In fiscal year 2017, program contract obligations had grown to 3.8% of contract obligations to all women-owned small businesses for program-eligible goods or services. This was about $713 million. Chairman Golden, Ranking Member Stauber, and members of the subcommittee, this completes my prepared statement. I would be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Mr. Wong, you are now recognized for opening statements for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, subcommittee members, thank you for the opportunity to testify today about the status of SBA's compliance with GAO's directive from my colleague, Mr. Scheer, regarding the NDAA 15 and our compliance with the WASB. On behalf of Mr. Chris Pilkerton, our acting administrator at SBA, we appreciate the opportunity to brief you on our progress. Some background first about our office. The U.S. government is the largest purchaser of goods and services, spends about $450 to $500 billion a year. We work collaboratively with all branches of government and small business professionals to make sure that the opportunities for small business are present. We make sure that 23% of the money spent by government goes to small business. So I also have some goals, in that the goals in general are to make sure that our certifications are more useful to both small businesses and to government. And if we do that, then you'll drive demand for the certifications and you'll increase contract awards to small business. Okay. Most importantly, we hold the public trust that when a contract is awarded to an SBA-certified small business, that they are qualified to receive it. We appreciate the assistance from GAO, and particularly Mr. Scheer, who has been our colleague working with us to improve our quality control and compliance. In both 2017 and 2018, due to the improvements in policy and processes in our programs, we have exceeded the 23% goal for the 5th and 6th consecutive years. More importantly, government has increased its spending with small businesses by almost 22% more than ever in history. This has meant more contracts for small businesses and, more importantly, more jobs for Americans. There's never been a better time to be a small business government contractor. Our small business certifications are effectively our products. Business demands them, and government wants to use SBA-certified companies to solve their challenges. My office administers 4 socioeconomic programs. The 8A program, which you may know, which has been the backbone of our office. It's a 30-year-old program for socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. We have the Hub Zone program, which is also it's for historically underutilized business zones. It's more or less like an economic development program. So it's not only designed to help the business, but also a poor area. This program has historically also been broken. We've tried to fix that. Finally, I should also mention that the 8A program and the Hub Zone program have certification processes whereby we do 2 things. We certify people when they get into the program, but more importantly, we continue to evaluate their qualifications after they get in. Okay, I'll get into the volume in a second. The WASB program and the service-disabled veteran programs are also what we look at. Those are self-certification programs, which have, for lack of, we have significantly less oversight of those programs. Okay. Compared to 8A and Hub Zone, I think the WASB program as it stands today and prior to 2017 when I came in, as well as the SDVOSB program, are more or less on the honor system, okay? As you've found and as you've alluded to, some people don't follow that, and I get that. Just to back up for a minute, ma'am, I've been aware of these programs since I've been 15 years old. I worked with the SBA, one of the first SBA's first 8A programs, okay? I packed the things in the warehouse. Okay. Then I ran my own companies, went to school. I came to SBA for 10 years. I wrote regulations for these programs, and I administered these programs earlier. Then for the last 20 years, I had my own company, and I supported up to 15 other companies, growing jobs through these programs. I take my job very, very seriously. Within the first month after I was briefed on the current state of the programs, I was advised and immediately concerned that the NDAA 15 had directed us to implement a formal certification for WASB. I learned essentially that nothing had been done. I also learned that while the responsibility had been directed, no funding was appropriated. As I testified before here at the HSBC, I am a lawyer, and I believe that we must comply with the law. After some analysis of size and volume, I learned that WASB was about 3 times the size of our existing 8A and Hub Zone programs. Concurrently, we were also being asked at the time to possibly bring on the VA's SDVOSB program, also a formal certification, and to combine it with our own, and the size of that program was similar to WASB, 3 times what we were already doing with 8A or with Hub Zone. I testified about this earlier last year. In short, the problem is one of scale. And so when we looked at things, why haven't we complied with Mr. Scheer's directives? The answer was based on the way that we were operating, we couldn't. So in general, it was a problem of scale. We were faced with a predicament that our volume of processing presently with 8A and Hub Zone was 3,500 applications a year, and it was also 10,000 annual reviews. So it's 2,000 applications as an example for 8A, but you have 5,000 active companies that are already in the program. So we have to approve the applications, and once you're in, we have to continue to certify your eligibility to make sure, again, with the public trust, that when SBA certified company receives a contract, they're qualified. So the volume we were faced was 3,500 applications in with 10,000 annual reviews. And we had to figure out if we had to add both WASB and VA, we would move to a volume of 35,000 applications and up to 40,000 annual reviews. I should note that we also didn't get any funding, and we were also not getting any more staff. What we also realized was that status quo was not an option. But to me, neither was standing still. I can't tell you what happened before, but I can tell you what I did ever since I've been in office. We decided to get to work. We decided to re-engineer our process using 8A as the backbone for all certifications because it's been our best tested program. It's been the most used program by government, and it's been the most helpful to government. We decided that the first thing we needed to do before we did anything was to come up with a blueprint or a plan of action for staffing, funding that would serve us today and in the future. The blueprint emphasized unifying the common elements of eligibility and standardizing their processes and analysis. We could process all applications as similarly as possible and reduce their variation as much as possible. It would retain their quality and help to ensure the public trust. Good news. The main part of the blueprint has recently been completed. It will soon be finished entirely. But with that bit of completion, we were able to again attack the questions and concerns that Mr. Scheer has raised. This necessary blueprint was the first step for giving us clarity about our present state and also for future funding and staffing and production needs. It would have been irresponsible prior to this point to have made any such request for staffing or funding without this blueprint. Most importantly, the blueprint has also guided us in establishing how we would address the concerns at NDA 15 and the best way to start to address Mr. Scheer's concerns. In that regard, a proposed rule establishing the formal certification program was filed on May 9th, and it was published, I think, a couple days ago. Based on the rulemaking process, we estimate June of 2021 before the actual implementation of the certification program. We have begun the process of meeting with third-party certifiers, and we have established a schedule to meet with them regularly and periodically. We are moving in the right direction, as quickly and responsibly as we can, and certainly within the first month of me taking office. We will continue to work diligently and to comply with the law and with your and Mr. Scheer's directions. This has not been a fast process, admittedly, but it is necessary. It is the smart thing to do. If we are making good progress, it has and will remain top of mind for me until it is done. There is a lot of work still to be done. I have been blessed to work with a strong leader, Mrs. McMahon, and now Mr. Chris Pilkerton, who support our actions, with our deputy, Barb Carson, whose support and co-leadership is invaluable to our team now and in the future and to our agency. And with a team of co-workers who has believed in our vision and upon whose experience and efforts are the backbone of our office, we have made significant progress in advancing policy, processes to deliver a more effective program to small businesses and government. This is just a brief glimpse of where we are and what we've been doing over the last 2 years to the WASB program, to all of our programs, and I'm ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong, for that opening testimony. And we'll now move to questions from the committee, and I'll begin by recognizing myself for the first 5 minutes. Mr. Wong, I appreciate what you had to say here and laying out how you have been working on implementation of this requirement from Congress since you came into this role in 2017. One of my favorite leaders that I have followed closely, Colin Powell, has this wonderful saying that I try and stick by, which is after 30 days in a new position, you own it. That's the departure line from which you don't get to make excuses for the problems that were left for you to take over. So I was encouraged to hear you say within a month that you were beginning to try and move forward with these changes and reviewing some of the recommendations of GAO as well. You can't necessarily speak for the decisions of your predecessor. I make the assumption that a decision was made at SBA to go ahead and move forward with the first part, which was allowing for the sole source authority in order to maximize the economic opportunities for women-owned small businesses as quickly as possible. And then to look, secondly, at the self-certification piece. And I think the problem being that it's taken so long. It's left quite a wide window there where we are increasing opportunities, yet we're also leaving the program and the integrity of the program at risk. And I understand you're trying to find the right balance to not push people away from trying to get that certification and participate in bid, while at the same time trying to find ways to make sure that the program is not being abused is very important. My gut instinct would be that some of these problems that we have talked about, whether it be oversight of third-party certifiers, oversight of program participants, or use of the WASB program under ineligible NAICS codes, in many ways had to do with staffing shortages, with funding shortages, with lack of technology and the resources needed to upgrade them and things of that nature. So I appreciate that you are saying that you had to take time to look and see what those resources were. I would have encouraged SBA to try and move more quickly on that. And with that, I would just open it up to you to maybe lay out, in your opinion, having done that review, what are the staffing needs? What are the technology upgrade needs or challenges that you face? And what additional funding do you need to successfully move forward with the intent of the law passed by Congress in 2015 under the NDAA, and what resources do you need to do it as best as possible?
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm going to probably disappoint you. I don't know. We have to generally look. What we try to do, and it isn't a flippant answer. We've come up with the blueprint of how we want to do this in general. In general, what I've tried to do is to satisfy is to comply with the law, with the amount of people that we have, and within the budget that we have. Okay. The utopian scenario would be that we have perfect income intakes of all qualified small businesses, and that we can give everyone an annual review just as rigorously each time every year. With the existing staffing levels that we have, we cannot. So we are doing additional things. We're doing risk-based analysis. We're trying, again, to do as much quality as we can. We are not making a sacrifice to quality. Okay, that may happen. We can be criticized on the amount that we're doing and the vigilance that we're doing, but I can guarantee that we are trying to do everything we can without asking for help. We will use the blueprint which we have, the original one, so we are getting staffing levels, and we are getting what I think are more responsible requests for budget together. To put it a different way, ma'am, I think that the law, based on how it looked, it assumed we would just simply set up another silo. So in our office, as an example, we have roughly 50 people within our office. We utilize up to, with the entire process for 8A, we probably use close to more than 100, including people in the field, just to administer a program for 5,000 active applicants. Okay? That's the one that is the best, where we have a rigorous intake process, and then we have a rigorous annual recertification, or excuse me, it's a continuing eligibility. We are faced with, if it was only setting up a silo, again, for the WASB program, based on the volume and based on the number of common elements that are common in terms of eligibility for WASB and for the 8A program, we would have to increase the staff, and we would by 3 times. Okay, I was quickly apprised by our CFO, no. So I think that the easy thing would have said, well, what can we do? Well, I'm not like normal people. I figured we will find a way, or we will make one, and that is why I'm so grateful for the team that we have, because they were willing to accept that vision. I said, we can't do nothing. You know, the American public needs our certifications. Put a different way, if we don't hold the public trust, they'll take the programs away. What good are they? And so we need to make sure, again, maybe as a lawyer, but we need to make sure, just like with 8A, we want to turn all of our programs in with that same standard. But we're trying to do everything that you're asking us to do. Most of the things you're asking us to do, as an example, are already in the 8A program. The challenge, again, is to move basically for something that is anywhere from 6 to 10 times larger than what we're doing with the people we have, and that's what the blueprint is helping us to do. We're going effectively, instead of horizontal silos, we've turned it into a processing shop, so that the people that we have and the analysts that we have and the different levels of analysts we have can process all applications. And they can do it today with HubZone and 8A, but then as we take on WASB, and if we take on service-disabled veterans, we should be okay. At that point, though, we don't have a number and we don't have staffing. Initially, I remember that when we had originally asked in the previous hearing for how we would look at all of the processing, it was a very, very large
Pause you right
number.
there, sir. Knowing that we've got a few other members that are going to ask want to ask some questions and not knowing what their timeline is. I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to the ranking member, Mr. Stauber. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Scheer, Mr. Wong, thanks for your testimony. You both have a lot of experience. There's no doubt about it. So, Mr. Wong, you've only been in this position for a couple of years. A couple of questions. The GAO report indicates the new certification process will be in place by January 1st of 2020. Did you just say 2021?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want you to look from the women-owned businesses across this country. This is the frustrating thing that they're seeing. Because all it takes, Mr. Wong, is one or two fraudulent businesses to take the legitimacy out of a woman-owned business for contracts, et cetera. This is just purely unacceptable, and I'm not blaming you. I like when your bosses make it happen, and I think you've articulated kind of how you're going to get there. But 5 years later, after Congress asked you to put this forward, this is a problem, and I'm glad you're in your position right now to be able to say we're going to do something. But to me, it's unacceptable. From northern Minnesota, this is simply unacceptable. The timeline that when Congress enacts that legislation, we ask that the small business folks take it and bring it across the country. As we always talk in this committee, Mr. Wong, that small businesses are the engine of our economy. We need this quicker, because I don't want any businesses legitimately owned by women to go out of business because of inaction by you or anybody else in your office. So I'm disappointed that you gave the answer 2021. I believe it's the truthful answer, but I want you to know that the women-owned business across this country are not going to be happy about that. And to me, it's unacceptable. I'm not putting blame on you. The second thing is, has the small business conducted a cost analysis of the 2015 NDAA SBA-run Women-Owned Small Business Certification Program? And if so, what did the agency find?
Okay. So to your second point first, this is we'll get the bad news out of the way. In operating a business, it's what I know how to do. We've got to be able to first understand how to define success and then how to measure it, right? And so that's why this blueprint has been so important. We have had to basically take, based on the volume that we're getting, and I want to make this clear, it's not an excuse, it's an explanation. We can't use the mechanisms that we can't use the processes that we've been doing before.
And so to that, are you going to explain the changes? Go ahead.
So we've kind of had to, at least on the blueprint, we have to tear down what we've done before. We have to break down those silos. We have to take people, for example, you have common elements in 8A, you have roughly 9 elements of eligibility. WASB has 8 of those same elements. So in my opinion, it's like if you look at ownership and control as 2 of the elements for which are critical for, are you the person that you say you are and are you qualified? We need to get the same answer. We need to get it quickly from the same analyst. But we have an analyst sitting over here that doesn't talk to an analyst over here. But so what I think in general, and then we have people that the process we would do is they do it from start to finish. There are different grade levels, different abilities. Well, some people are good at handling, I'm a fat guy, so I'll just use this example. I'm really good at eating dessert, okay? But if you gave me a full meal, I'll take 10 hours because I can't get through the vegetables. All right. If you break these teams up into what they're good at, if you make it as common as possible, and you can set up a system so that they can look and see what they have to do for the analysis, it goes much better. None of that was here. So I had to, with our team, we had to come up with that. Okay. So God bless Barb Carson. She is the one that is shepherding through this blueprint. The blueprint will be here while I'm here and in the future for all of our SBA employees. We have people there that have devoted their careers to this, more than 20 years each for this. That's all what's been here with a broken system. We're trying to rebuild this system in a new way that's more efficient and help them so that we can get this volume. So to your point, we are doing the cost analysis and the staffing analysis. I would love another opportunity to come back and make an ask, and I'd love to have your support.
That, Mr. Wong, that brings me to my second question. Does the SBA know what staff resource levels are necessary to fully operate this program?
We are getting there.
Okay.
And to the point, just so that you know, with the current level we have, we're basically trying to increase their workload by 6 times, okay, with a thank you very much, I appreciate you, okay? We're going to try and do as much as we can. We can't do all of it, but we will get some of it done, ever mindful of the responsibilities we have to the women business owners, to the minority business owners, to the historically underutilized business owners, and the public trust. Okay, it's a slow process, and I'm sorry to say, but it is my best estimate. I would rather have you flay me in public because I'm strong enough I can take it. I think the system will work.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Stuber. Would now go ahead and recognize Mr. Rep. Mark Vesey for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask about women and the loans that they receive. I know that obviously that's a big deal with SBA, women being able to receive loans and have access to capital. When you ask women entrepreneurs, one of the reasons why they can't expand their business is access to capital with lots of smaller minority-owned businesses. I believe that women received about, women make up about 30% of small businesses in the country, but received about 17% of the SBA backed conventional loans. What are y'all trying to do to help that number out a little bit? And I believe out of the total dollars that were given out, that women-owned businesses only received about 4.4% of those with SBA conventional loans, and was just curious what y'all were doing to address that issue.
Thank you for that question, sir. The loan policies and programs, I can give you an anecdotal answer. The loan policies and programs are handled by OCA, and that's Mr. Manger. But I can tell you that the way that we would help women to get loans is by getting more contracts for them and more opportunities. Okay, so what I had told the committee previously, and I'll reiterate here, with my team's efforts while we're doing all of these things together, over the last 2 years, I'm very proud to say that through their efforts, we have grown small business opportunities by 22%. By any measure of a market, I think that's a good job.
22% for women?
No, 22% overall. So historically, before I came to office, historically the government had spent about $99.9 billion with small business, I believe in 2013 or 14. In 2017, we raised that historical number to $105 billion, and last year, 2018, we raised it again to $121 billion. So there are more opportunities for small businesses, and particularly for women-owned small businesses. But if generally how I would run a business is that if you can get these contracts, you're more creditworthy, and then you have more access to loans.
Do you have any way to break down exactly what percentage that you just pointed out of those monies were received by women?
I could ask. I don't carry. We don't calculate that in our office, but I can certainly get that information.
In areas where y'all have had success in working with women businesses, like with the microloan program that the SBA runs, I believe that women-owned businesses received about 57.4%, according to one study that I saw of a successful microloan program that you guys run. Have you looked at ways how you could expand those sorts of programs where women-owned businesses have shown to be very successful?
Joe, that's a great idea. We haven't looked at it that specifically, but I can tell you that we have looked at loans, we have looked at counseling, and we have looked at contracting. And I think that we're doing a better job of cross-pollinating areas together, because I think that SBA as a whole, if you look at us as a community, you know, in theory, you get counseling, you go into business, get contracts, and then you use loans to continue to grow. Okay.
I would ask, and you know, in the last minute that I have, if you know, when you come back, or if you could get back to the committee at a future date with something in writing on the feasibility of being able to expand those programs where women are already doing well. I think that would be really great. I think that would be good data for the committee to see. I know I would like to see it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much. I wanted to go ahead and shift gears a little bit in a second round of questions. Mr. Scheer, could you just talk a little bit from your perspective in the work that you did reviewing this program at the request of this committee? What are some of the difficulties that you think have led to the delay in moving forward with these new requirements of SBA?
You're asking an excellent question, and I'm going to do my best to answer it, but some of it is a mystery to me and to us. Okay. We were told now almost 2 years ago that SBA was about 1 or 2 months away from having a proposed rule. And we couldn't see how much progress had been made within the agency on that. We also knew that the person who was the director of government contracting and business development had taken actions such as the review of the one-time review of the third-party certifiers, and certainly stated the intent to make that an ongoing process and to try to address our recommendations. So in a sense, when we were looking like in 2017, we saw a situation where the agency was moving forward. Then, so the idea there is that we were just kind of going like, well, a month or two might have been too ambitious. But then when it became, well, it's going to take us longer to do that, and there's a new director of the program, okay, and it's going to take longer. We asked for simple things like, do you have a project plan? Do you have a project plan with timelines? Because the steps in rulemaking are pretty straightforward. We did a report 2 years ago on this office and the rulemaking process and the steps that go into it and how much time it takes. So why couldn't the agency do that? So I don't know what was going on behind, you know, any disagreements within the agency, but I can't speak to that. Now, I first saw the proposed rule in draft form last Wednesday and read through it, as did members of my team. In looking at it, I'm not going to comment directly on the proposed rule because the public comment process is a very important one and we don't interfere with that. But in reading it, I'm still at a loss to try to figure out why this proposed rule took so long to take. And part of it is the failure of SBA just to state to us, what steps are you going through to complete this rule? Though that's like bread and butter type questions we always ask, especially when timelines are involved. So the agency really hasn't been responsive to us, and so it is a mystery.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Mr. Dauber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Scheer, you just reiterated the frustration in what Greater America has and some of the inadequacy of our government. Mr. Wong, the SBA operates programs that are unauthorized by Congress. Given the lack of funding and resources you've referenced, can the SBA go back and try to reallocate some of the resources which are going to unauthorized programs to congressionally mandated programs like WASB?
At least as regards WASB, we went to our CFO, and the answer was that they could not provide the level of funding that at the time when we had asked them about setting up another silo, they said absolutely not. We don't have that funding. Whether it can be reallocated, I don't know. I leave that up to the CFO. He generally had been somebody that if we needed help and he could do it, I don't know what he does, but you know, I don't know. But I know that we asked, and I know that the answer was no.
I yield back.
So, just listening to all this, Mr. Wong, I just want to, state and maybe ask, and I think we can follow up with some of this in writing. I would just make note that you pointed out in your testimony and some of your responses to the questions, it sounds to me that there are concerns about new requirements without additional resources and funding. I think that you are a mission-oriented person. You want to get the job done. You want to do it right. You want to do it the very best that you can. Congress told SBA to go ahead and do something, and you're trying to do it within existing resources without asking for more of them, which I understand. And I think Mr. Stauber was spot on when he talked about the concerns about the damage that can be done when something like this takes too long to the integrity of the program, the impact it can have on the women-owned small businesses who should be competing and should be winning these opportunities to contract with the government. I would just point out that from my perspective, at some point there's a responsibility for SBA to provide back to Congress whatever issues there are that are holding them back from moving forward with implementation in a timely manner. It seems you're describing an interaction with internally within SBA where people are saying no. Certainly it is dependent upon us to ask these questions, to give you the opportunity to come back to and tell us what you need. That's what we're doing right now. So I would ask that we get something back in writing detailing exactly what is the cost of moving forward with the self-certification, with a certification process that it's required of third-party certifiers. What resources do you need in order to move forward and do so appropriately? So, we'll follow up with something in writing and ask for that back. But really, I think that's, the politics of what something costs in taxpayer dollars, I think belongs rightfully up here among these members and in Congress to talk about whether or not we should be spending more to move forward with something like this. And so, I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to say thank you to you both. Mr. Wong, it's not a great seat to sit in today, but with your experience, and I really appreciate your honesty, and that's the feedback we need. But please know that the concerns for women-owned small business is a priority for us. And please, as Chairman Golden talked about, please come back with those written statements on how we're going to go forward in a manner that is extremely timely. And I have faith in your experience that you'll come back and break down those silos and make it work. So thank you to you both.
I think I would add to that too, Mr. Wong, if we could, and I think we may have already requested this, but just in case as well, we would request in writing a timeline for implementation of the program, how you intend to complete this work by January of 2021. I think we noted originally in the committee information that it was January of 2020. I don't know if that's is incorrect information. It slid a year. That's fine, but let's see the timeline on paper so we can continue to do the oversight that's necessary. And we want to work with you to make this work. With that, I would just go ahead with a closing statement. The Women-Owned Small Business Program aims to expand contracting opportunities for women, but as we've heard today, untimely implementation of reforms coupled at times with non-existent oversight threatens to defeat congressional intent. Women entrepreneurs in the business they own have been and will continue to be a driving force in our economy. Competing in the federal marketplace is an integral part of the role that they play. And as we seek for ways to improve this program, we look forward to working with SBA to ensure that these and future reforms are implemented. I would ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record. Without objection, so ordered. And if there's no further business to come before the committee, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay, okay, okay.